Very much so. I think in many ways she gave real meaning and life to the whole idea of non-racialism through, just wearing her sari to Parliament to the first 10 years that she presided in Parliament as Speaker. And that, I think, gave real meaning to to issues of diversity, to the issue of gender equality in this country, and the broad inclusive nature of that first sort of period of our transition to democracy, steeped in the issue of non-violence, but not one that was in principle opposed to the issue of the armed struggle, but herself never a participant in it.
Now, she obviously stood on behalf of women and her role as the first speaker. How significant was her role that way back in 1994 for the 10 years that she was a Speaker of the National Assembly?
I think she gave Parliament the necessary decorum. She held it together to ensure that the transitional period, as I would call it, brought about a kind of quantity of legislation that has never been reached again in this country, as well as quality of legislation that very few of which I think saw the kind of constitutional challenges which the latter periods of Parliament has seen. But the quality of discussion, the quality of debate, and the decorum of Parliament under her tenure is perhaps unsurpassed, and is one that we can only hope that Parliament will find a way of getting back to in the future.
What I find absolutely remarkable is her history. The things that she did, studied in London. I mean, way before our freedom. Prior to returning to exile in 1990, she was head of the political research unit in the office of ANC President Oliver Tambo. I think certainly as legacy and an illustration of what can be done where willpower is concerned, what does that speak to her legacy?
Well, I think her legacy is tied to the legacy of many of the people of her generation. And I like to describe that generation as people who participated in the struggle without the expectation of reward. When the risks were at its highest, and when freedom seemed a very distant possibility, this was a generation that gave it their all, knowing that their lives were on the line, but with very little expectation of reward, as well as when freedom did come, executed their tasks in a way that I think epitomized the best of the qualities of the freedom fighters of her generation.
Now, I was reading earlier about when she spoke at the Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture many years ago, and she had many frustrations. Certainly some of those frustrations around what she struggled for, what she fought for, and the failure of the ANC government, certainly, to achieve some of those things.
I think like many of her generation, they were shaped by the ideals of the Freedom Charter, which then got translated into the vision of our Constitution. And with those aspirations in mind, they were always going to measure the quality of our democracy against what those ambitions were. And obviously we're going to point out the shortcomings of the politics in terms of reaching those lofty goals. And I think she and many others would have been very dismayed with the slow pace of change, the quality of our democracy, and frank reality, the dismal failure to improve the lives of millions of poor and working people in this country.